Did you know that 1/3 of Americans would like to move abroad? That number has tripled since 1974. Moving to another country is one of the biggest decisions you can make. It's an exciting adventure, but also a huge life shift. We know this firsthand. We left the USA in 2018 and have been sharing our experiences for the last 6 years, living in 2 countries on 2 different continents.
If you've been thinking about leaving the rat race and moving abroad in 2025, whether it's for retirement, work, or just a fresh start, there are a lot of things to consider. In this video, we'll discuss everything from visas and taxes to cultural adjustments and language struggles. Basically, all the things we wish we'd known before making the leap. So before you book the one-way ticket, let's talk about the biggest challenges expats face and how to prepare yourself for the big move.
Hi everyone, welcome. If this is your first time here, we're Diane and Guillermo, early retirees from the US on a journey to find our perfect place to call home.
Today, we're diving into a topic that many of you that are considering leaving the US have asked about. We're sharing our experiences, lessons learned, and key insights to help you avoid common misunderstandings and make your transition smoother. Let's get into it.
Choosing the right city is one of the biggest decisions when moving overseas. It's not just about picking a place that's pretty or popular. There are some really important things you need to think about to make sure it's the right fit for your new lifestyle. When we moved from the US, we didn't want to have a car, so our priority was a walkable city with everything nearby. We have generally found ourselves not too far from the city center, so access to amenities and restaurants is easy without having one.
Public transport was a very important factor for us. Although we did drive to Mexico, we took the opportunity to say goodbye to many of our friends and family along the way. We drove around the city and nearby attractions, but the car sat in the driveway most of the time. Ubers and public transport were inexpensive and we walked a lot. We ended up selling the car before moving to Lisbon, and we don't miss it having it here. If we ever need a vehicle, we just rent one, since they're so inexpensive in Europe. We have several bus stops and a tram near our house to get around locally, and high-speed trains to visit other cities in Portugal.
Yes, and being close to an international airport was also very important since we travel so much. Another thing to remember is whether you want to be near a beach, the mountains, a big city, or a quiet rural area. It seems obvious, but the reason we have our 10-point checklist is to keep us on track, since we sometimes fall in love with a vibe when we first arrive in a city somewhere. But once you start thinking about day-to-day life, you realize it may not have everything you want for long-term happiness. We really like to have a beach nearby that we can get to for a day, but we're not beach bums that want to hang out there every day. A city with lots to do and international restaurants is more important to us. We loved the Mexican food in Guadalajara, but really missed not having a more international restaurant scene available like in Lisbon. And the food scene wasn't even something we really thought about in our first move.
Green spaces are also important to us since we have Che and Buddy now. Proximity to parks is a must for us. In Mexico, we live near Parque Metropolitano, a huge park with lots to do, including dog agility courses and safe walking paths. Here in Lisbon, we lucked out because we live literally in front of the biggest forest park, and it's called Monsanto. We take daily walks there, and the pups love it.
You also have to think about the type of weather you prefer and the types of extreme weather you are willing to accept. We thought we only wanted a warm place year-round, but have realized we really like the change of seasons. We definitely don't want to be in a place that snows, but we want to experience the changing colors and the crisp air of spring and fall.
Yeah, Guadalajara had its share of heavy rains and mosquitoes. We knew about it, but we really didn't mind it. The problem was how bad the city flooded during the rainy season, and the mosquitoes thrive in damp places, something we forgot to ask during our scouting time. We also made sure to choose a place free of natural disasters. We didn't want to deal with tornadoes or tsunamis of any sort. I lived in California, and I had my share of earthquakes. Lisbon did have the big earthquake of 1755, but in 3 years living here, we only experienced one registered earthquake, and we slept right through it.
We didn't realize how important this was when we first left the U.S. Having a strong expat community and a backbone of friends and contacts to ease the transition really helps when you're in a place where everything is new and different. People that are having the same experience or have a similar background and share their recommendations and solutions for problems that arise really help ease your anxiety.
We found many social media groups with fellow expats, internation events, meetups, and Facebook groups. We reached out to a few members for information and tips prior to move here, and we watched plenty of YouTube videos. It's amazing what people will share when you ask them.
We cannot stress enough how important it is to spend time in a city before making the move. If possible, visit for at least a few weeks and stay in different locations to really get a feel for the area you like.
We visited Guadalajara for a couple weeks in 2017. We liked the size of the city, the weather, and we made a few friends early. It was definitely a soft landing into early retirement for us because of the low cost of living, and it checked off most of our living requirements. Same here in Lisbon. We stayed here for 2 weeks back in 2019 before moving here. Although the cost of living is higher, we still consider it affordable and worth the extra expense for a better quality of life.
Absolutely.
Not only do we need to understand taxes in a new country, as Americans, we also have to continue to file U.S. taxes no matter where we live. And on top of that, you may owe taxes to the state you lived in the U.S., and if you still have ties there, like bank accounts or driver's licenses. Tax rules vary from country to country, and understanding your obligations up front can save you a lot of stress and money.
The first thing you should do is check if the country you are considering has a tax treaty with the USA. These treaties can reduce or eliminate certain taxes, but not all income types are protected. Therefore, you need to check what it covers. This will allow you to use the foreign tax credit when available. It's a benefit that allows U.S. taxpayers to claim a credit against their U.S. tax bill for income taxes paid to foreign governments. Then, you will need to know the tax rates and rules for residents of the country you'll be living in. In Portugal, we were approved for the NHR, the non-habitual resident tax regime. As Portugal taxes worldwide income like the U.S., this provided us a lot of tax breaks. You'll also want to know the tax filing deadlines to avoid penalties. And if you have a business or may start one, you need to understand business or self-employment taxes. With our YouTube income in Portugal, we pay into the Social Security system here, have to file invoice receipts every time we receive a payment, and file different types of quarterly and annual returns.
Many countries have taxes that we Americans may not expect. For example, Spain, which we've been scouting, has wealth taxes that vary by region. It can really end up costing you if you live in one of those areas, especially if you're a high net worth individual. There are also inheritance taxes that your heirs may owe that also vary by region.
That's why it's so important to consult with a local accountant to keep you updated. When living abroad, you receive an automatic extension until June 15th to file your U.S. taxes. Then, you may have to file an FBAR. We didn't know about this when we left the USA, but any American with foreign bank accounts that have a cumulative balance exceeding $10,000 for even one day of the year must file it. We like to transfer larger amounts of US dollars to euros when the exchange rate is good. Therefore, we file one every year. And if you have foreign financial accounts, you may have to file a Form 8938, a FATCA. Remember, foreign banks may report your accounts to the IRS.
Dealing with two tax systems isn't easy, but you don't have to do it alone. That's why we recommend Taxes for Expats, a trusted tax service specializing in expat tax returns.
They have over 20 years of experience in expatriate taxation. They serve over 50,000 clients in Portugal and more than 190 other countries worldwide. They provide personalized human assistance, no robots, for a hassle-free experience.
They make filing easy. stress-free, and fully compliant with U.S. tax requirements. If you need an expert guidance, check out Taxes for Expats using our link below for a $25 credit on your first tax service.
Or scan the QR code on the screen.
We mentioned how a strong expat community can be a great support system when moving abroad. But sometimes, the neighborhood that captures your heart is filled with locals who may not speak English. Or maybe you want to fully immerse yourself in the local culture by living outside of an expat area. Either way, this can make everyday communication a bit more challenging.
And learning a new language can be tough, especially as we get older. We're currently taking Portuguese classes, and it's not easy.
Definitely not.
It would be easy to get by without learning it, especially in Lisbon, where so many people speak English really well. But it's much more enriching and respectful to know the language of the country you are living in. Everyday tasks like grocery shopping, scheduling appointments, or simply taking the bus can be frustrating when you don't speak the language, especially going in government offices where the personnel do not speak much English. You have brain fatigue, constantly trying to figure out things that were second nature back home. But being able to interact with your neighbors and locals helps you integrate and learn more about the culture, making daily life much smoother. Guillermo thought Portuguese would be easy for him since he's fluent in Spanish. But you found out it's difficult to understand when people talk to you. He's always been very outgoing and social, but found himself hesitant when interacting and not wanting to go out as much due to the language barrier.
I was fine in Mexico, but Portugal is different. I did feel a little intimidated at first. I didn't want to speak in fear of turning into a full conversation and being unable to keep up. European Portuguese is hard. I truly did not understand what people were saying to me, and my personality was affected by it. It can become very isolating. You already feel disconnected from your home culture, friends, and family. We believe this is a common cause of Americans going back to the USA, not only because they want to be closer to family, but also because they find it difficult building a social circle in a new country. Try to learn the basics of the language before you move, and socializing with expats and locals is also key. There are many ways to interact, from classroom language learning classes to meetups and participating in Facebook groups. You'll be surprised how helpful and responsive fellow expats are. Developing new routines is also something to think about. You have no idea how many people ask this. What do you do in retirement? Do you get bored? You really can't follow the same routines you did in the US. Things are just different, and it's up to you to blend in and to keep your mind and body active.
We've always kept a full calendar, exercising, travel, day trips, cooking, baking, and more. A lot of things we always wanted to do but never had the time for. It's really a balance. Here in Lisbon, we found a nice mix of expats and locals to do things with, which gives us a great sense of community without feeling like we're too far removed from the Portuguese life.
Moving to a new country as an expat is exciting, but it comes with a fair share of culture shock. From language barriers and unfamiliar customs to adjusting to new foods, the transition can be both thrilling and frustrating. Beware of traditional formalities of the country you choose to live in. In some places, there are different customs and greetings. In Mexico, for example, you kiss on the cheek when you meet someone. In Portugal, you kiss one kiss on each cheek. And in the Netherlands, it's 3 kisses. So your personal space will be invaded, especially for Americans. You may be taken aback when it happens, and it will take you time to adjust. Learning restaurant opening times and understanding meal customs is also very important. Don't trust Google and store hours statuses. You'll find them wrong at times. Calling places before heading out is advised. We learned it the hard way many times. And remember, the tipping culture in many European countries is not as common and required as it is in the USA. It was usual in Mexico, but not so much in Portugal. It is appreciated when the service is above and beyond your expectations, but don't be dropping 20% of the bill because locals may not appreciate it, since it's not customary.
The emotional stages of adjusting to a new culture just takes time. In the beginning, it's exciting, but then you begin to feel overwhelmed by unfamiliar systems and social cues, which brings on a lot of brain fatigue. When I went to the grocery store for the first time in Lisbon, I couldn't figure out how to free the shopping cart. They're chained to each other, and you have to insert a coin or a token you can get from the store in order to unlock the cart from the chain. I probably spent 10 minutes trying to figure out how to pull out the cart and finding someone to explain it to me. My brain was already exhausted by the time I even began grocery shopping.
It is actually a great system to keep the cards from being spread around, since you have to chain it back to get your little coin back.
But in general, we found it takes us about 6 months to acclimate to our local surroundings and figure out the little things like that for everyday living. It takes about a year to feel more at home with new routines and connections, and about 2 years to really understand a city well and all of the nuances.
Remember to respect religious celebrations and national holidays. You will be affected one way or another. I remember when we visited Granada, Spain, there was a religious celebration and processions were taking place, and they're typically slow and long. Expect road closures and public transport delays. And do you want to get a beer during a football game in Portugal? You can't, as alcohol is forbidden inside the stadiums.
There are many cultural nuances, but understanding them should become more natural over time. The more active you are in the community, despite basic language skills, the faster you will learn and be able to interact day to day. Don't be deterred, as we've found most locals are happy to help when you're doing your best to speak the language and practice the social customs. Every country has its own rules and requirements, and they do change frequently. It's important to stay informed and avoid relying on outdated information. Understanding how visas and residency requirements work and keeping up with any updates is crucial. For example, Portugal's D7 visa is a popular option for retirees, but what about Spain? The D7 passive income visa in Portugal allows retirees to work, but the Spanish non-lucrative visa does not. Also, the digital nomad visa monthly income requirements in some countries is really high. Knowing the best visa for your situation can make all the difference in a smooth transition abroad. Many countries will allow you to obtain citizenship after being a permanent resident for a set number of years. Don't overlook this pathway when planning your move abroad. Securing citizenship not only offers you long-term stability, but may allow you to live and work across borders like in the European Union. You have to carefully consider this option, though, as some countries do not allow dual citizenship, and new citizenship in a country can come with new tax and legal obligations that you do not have as a permanent resident.
Professional help for complex visa applications is very important. Although we did ours on our own in Mexico and here in Portugal, we wish to have professional help many times. It's worth every penny in the long run.
Just be willing.
One thing we've learned living abroad is that the red tape of bureaucracy is real, and it's not always straightforward. You might spend hours in government offices chasing documents and waiting on approvals. Tasks as simple as setting up your utilities or opening a bank account can turn into a full-day event. Trust us when we say patience becomes your best friend. It's one thing you'll need a lot of when moving abroad, because things just take time. Government processes can move at a snail's pace, and residency visas often take months to be approved. Sometimes appointments get canceled, sometimes they're pushed back, and sometimes people just don't show up at all. It's frustrating, but it's all part of the adjustment. The best approach we've found is to expect delays, stay flexible, and don't take it personally. These challenges make the journey even more rewarding and give you stories to tell.
Every country has its own way of processes, and they come with its share of faults. It's always wise to take the initiative to have extra copies, apostille if needed, and even extra paperwork you may think you need. Like for example, when we were applying for residency in Mexico, although they didn't require them, we went ahead and got our driving records, our marriage certificate, and our birth certificates apostille, just in case. Lo and behold, we were asked to present our birth certificates at the time of our residency interview for Portugal. And we needed our driving records to exchange our licenses also. You never know who will handle your paperwork or what mood they'll be in. It's better to have more than not enough.
No he rellenado eso casi.
Sometimes there's really nothing you can do to speed up or fix the processes. Just rest assured they will get done eventually.
Having professionals to guide you through the process makes a huge difference. That's why we always share information about our trusted partners in the description of our videos. They can help you navigate the red tape and save you a ton of headaches along the way. This one's huge. Some cities are surprisingly expensive, even in countries known for lower living costs. Make sure to get an accurate picture of rent, utilities, food, and healthcare costs. Even within the same country, costs can vary dramatically between cities. We're going through that right now in Lisbon. The rent costs are so high here. And if you're in any of the smaller towns and villages, other than Porto and the Algarve,
Or central Portugal.
yeah, it's really not as bad there. And don't forget about exchange rates when considering costs. When we moved to Portugal more than 3 years ago, the exchange rate was $1.18 to the euro. As of today, it's $1.04 to the euro. If your rent is 1,500 euros a month, that's 18,000 euros a year. So at a $1.04 exchange rate, it will be $18,720. But at a $1.18 exchange rate, it's $21,240. That's no small change. That's one of the reasons why we like to move larger amounts of US dollars into euros when the exchange rate is really good. You'll have to consider health insurance costs too. Now, the cost of healthcare and insurance is much less in other countries than in the US. And many countries offer residents access to their universal healthcare system. You need to keep in mind, though, that a lot of countries will require proof of an annual health insurance plan as part of your visa application and your residency renewal. Also, we like to have private health insurance as we don't want to strain the already overburdened public healthcare systems. And the wait times for public care can be very long. Moving overseas doesn't just mean a new home, it often means a whole new way of spending money. If you're used to driving everywhere, switching to public transportation can be a big adjustment. It also means budgeting for metro passes, train tickets, or Ubers instead of gas and car insurance. You might also find yourself eating out more, especially if restaurant prices are lower than in the US. But some things may be more expensive than expected. Imported products, electronics, and certain items like electricity can cost more than in the US. Budgeting can take some trial and error as you adapt to a new cost of living, different shopping habits, and unexpected expenses. Moving abroad usually means letting go of a lot of stuff, and that can be an emotional roller coaster. Whether it's furniture, family heirlooms, or a closet full of clothes, deciding what to bring and what to leave behind can feel overwhelming. A big question that everyone has that decides to move out of the USA is what to bring. A few things that you should seriously consider are the electrical outlets that are different, so bringing small kitchen appliances, hair stylers, or any other small appliances can require bulky converters, and they're just really not worth it. Everything you have in the US, you can find here.
Stores in Portugal have everything and anything you need. Plus there's Amazon Spain that delivers the next day. In Mexico, it was the same way. Plus, they had Costco's there to get your bulk items. If you're used to a big house, large rooms, French door refrigerators, California king beds, forget about them. spaces are generally small outside of the United States, especially in Europe. If you must ship large items, then read blogs and social media posts for other expats so you don't run into any surprises. Bringing furniture can be a bad and costly decision, and importing cars can become a logistical and financial disaster. American cars, automatics especially, can be difficult and expensive to maintain and register in other countries. You will be paying high tariffs. We read that most people regret bringing too much stuff, so unless it is artwork or heirlooms with a lot of sentimental value, we think it's best to start fresh. Save yourself the headache and cost of the international shipping expenses and leave them behind.
We got rid of everything. We kept just enough to fill our SUV before driving to Mexico. Sometimes we miss a few things, like my Christmas decor collection and Guillermo's Kiss memorabilia. Would we do it again?
Abso-freaking-lutely. It was liberating, started a clean slate into our new lives.
Selling, donating, or storing belongings takes time and tough decisions. But in the end, having fewer possessions makes the transition smoother. Bringing our furry ones is one of the most stressful tasks in our moving process to both Mexico and to Portugal. We wanted the best and most comfortable means possible for Buddy and Che without breaking the bank. It was a relatively simple process driving Che across the border into Mexico with a veterinary health certificate. But the amount of paperwork and veterinary documents required to move Che and Buddy to Portugal was downright stressful. Not only do pets need to have certain vaccinations and an EU health certificate from an accredited veterinarian, they have to have a certain type of microchip, and the health certificate has to be endorsed by the USDA within 10 days of your pet's arrival in the European Union. And once we entered Portugal, we had to see a vet here also to obtain their European pet passports and the Leishmaniasis vaccine. It's a danger for pets in Portugal that we had not even heard of in the US. So not only is it stressful making sure you have everything required, it has to be done under a very tight time constraint, and it's quite expensive between the multiple vet visits, vaccinations, and endorsements. Don't forget, you also have to work out how to take your pets and the cost of their travel. Many airlines have restrictions for the number of pets a passenger can travel with, their age, size, and against snub-nosed breeds. They also have strict requirements for the type of crates they will accept and the time of year you can travel with them. If you do not have a small pet, then they'll need to go in the cargo hold, something that can be very stressful for them and you.
One of the biggest concerns when moving abroad is healthcare. How to access it, how much it costs, and whether it's as good as what you're used to. The good news, many countries have high-quality healthcare at a fraction of US prices. But navigating the system takes some planning.
We have found the cost of quality healthcare outside of the US to be so affordable that we could probably self-insure, except for any catastrophic injuries or illnesses. In fact, that's exactly what we did in Mexico. Our doctors there were the best we've ever had. The private facilities were top-notch, and we're finding them to be similar in Portugal. As we mentioned before, many countries provide universal health care for residents as well as citizens. We prefer to have private health insurance, but the costs are dependent on your age and coverage available for pre-existing conditions. Our monthly expense for the two of us has never exceeded 200 euros. And certain treatments are so inexpensive that we've paid out of pocket when not covered by insurance. It's really important to realize that emergency services in other countries are not the same as what you might be used to in the US. When we lived in Guadalajara, for example, emergency ambulances took a long time or didn't even show up. We quickly realized that there were fewer ambulances and many elderly people subscribed to a private service that they could call in case of an emergency. The emergency number here in Portugal is 112, not 911. And while English speakers are available, we've heard that responders take extra time assessing the situation before dispatching help. When you have an emergency, you will go to the public hospitals as they are prepared for these situations in Portugal. However, in Mexico, we would have requested a private hospital. This is why doing your research ahead of time is crucial. You need to make sure you understand how the healthcare system works, where to go for specific care, and whether the quality of care aligns with your needs and expectations. And of course, it's important to understand what your insurance plan covers.
When looking for a family doctor, talk to other expats and get referrals. Ask them about what hospital they use and how they like them. We found that doctors do spend one-on-one time with patients. Unlike speaking with a nurse or assistants before seeing the doctor like in the US. Here in Portugal, medical appointments tend to be a bit short, on an average of 20 minutes or so. In Mexico, it was almost an hour-long consultation with the doctor himself, and we liked that very much. Something to keep in mind when trying to establish a relationship with your physician.
That's it for today's video. We hope this information is helpful. If there's anything you'd like us to dive deeper into, or if you have other important tips to share, drop a comment below and we'll be sure to cover them in future videos.
If you're thinking about moving to Portugal, check out this video next to find out why Portugal is still such a great place to retire. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.